Hi, my name is Kayla Sapkota, and I'm happy to be here with you today making this presentation. I hate that I can't get to see everybody's faces, but hopefully this will give you some good information about a maybe lesser known project to many of you. So I'm giving a 5-year project update on the CRF mapping and monitoring on the Buffalo National River. And the Buffalo National River is a very special place to me. It's just north of where I was born and raised in Arkansas. And there's a lot of nice stuff there, that's for sure. So this is somewhat of a 5-year update from my previous presentation at the NSS convention in 2015. So a little bit about the Buffalo National River, then a little bit about the caves on the National River, and then diving into what we do with the Cave Research Foundation on the BNR. So the Buffalo National River was established in 1972 as a national park, or within the national park system. It's super popular for camping, hiking, floating, all kinds of nice outdoor activities. People go fishing there as well. And if you were to go out today in mid-June, you would see a lot of people on the river. Very popular place. Within the Park Service lands, there are 135 miles of just gorgeous river, gorgeous bluffs, free-flowing river as well. That's one important point that we're very proud of for this river. It's home to 774 documented karst features, and of course that includes things that are maybe not cave length, that are more shelters than actual karst, but a lot of great stuff here. You can see that the river, it's running west to east in this picture. You can see it kind of has a nice meander and covers quite a bit of land width-wise. So going back to what the Cave Research Foundation does, it was formed in 1957 to map and assist with the knowledge gathering of what's going on in Mammoth Cave. We're not talking about Mammoth Cave today, but we're talking about one of the other project areas that have since developed since the inception of the CRF in 1957. The Buffalo National River is part of the Greater Ozarks Operations Area, which extends into Missouri and then also a little bit into Oklahoma. So CRF has the mission of facilitating cave research, management, and interpretations, making partnerships with managers and agencies as well, in order to better document what kind of things you have in your karst systems. On the Buffalo National River, we do this by accomplishing biological monitoring, public use monitoring, cartographic survey, and then specifically focusing on white nose syndrome and what's going on there. So one thing to note that I definitely have to say is that the cave and karst features in the Buffalo National River are closed to the public. We operate under a cooperative agreement and scientific research permit in order to do the research that we do. So definitely don't get in trouble by visiting the caves that we talk about today. So about the caves on the Buffalo National River, there are 542 actual cave length type caves. So we're looking at 20-25 feet or more in length. Shelters and karst features, we have 185 of those, and then there are 46 leads that have been reported over the years. Interesting thing is over the past several years, over the past decade especially, we've added something like 200 or more caves to our, maybe even closer to 300 to the database. So we keep increasing the number of records that we have. There are 3 main counties within the Buffalo National River lands, Newton, Searcy, and Marion. Most of the caves that are documented in the database are in Newton County, but that doesn't necessarily mean there aren't quite a bit more to find in Searcy and Marion. Of course, we do get some variances in limestone and thickness and types, etc., but I know there has been quite a bit of looking over the decades in Newton County. As far as the map status, do we have a map? Do we not have a map? What kind of map do we have of each of the caves? We have final maps, most of them digital maps, or all of them are going to be either scanned in or mapped digitally, but we have final maps on about 60% of the caves. Work in progress maps on another 6%, some sort of sketch, typically a memory sketch map on 18%, and then we don't have anything on file on 16%. And that purple area there, the 16%, is definitely the one we want to work on some more. So about the caves that we know of in the Buffalo National River, and we keep finding more each year, most of them are shorter. Okay, so 64% of them are less than 100 feet long, and then we have another 24%, 100 to 500 feet, and then from there we have lower and lower numbers. Now there are some that we don't have data on, and this probably corresponds nicely to the leads that we had mentioned on the previous slide, but there are some that we need to find out more information about. There's always more work to be done. So most of our caves are shorter, but all of them matter and all deserve to have a good full record on them, biological inventories, and solid maps. White nose syndrome in Arkansas, it's here. It's been here for several years now. Any presentation related to caves, especially cave life, should include information on this. So here's the info from whitenosesyndrome.org as of June 2020, which is the time that I'm making this presentation. The Buffalo National River is located kind of along the north band of the state, so you'll see that each of the counties that the BNR is in definitely are white nose positive. This isn't to say that necessarily there's not white nose syndrome in the rest of the state, just maybe that it's not been reported or necessarily been looked for. So let's get into what the CRF does on the buffalo. So I had mentioned earlier inventorying, so finding what you have, finding out what you have, how big the caves are, what they look like, taking photos of the entrances, describing what geologic formation they're in, etc. All of that is very important. And we maintain all of our data in FileMaker Pro, a database program. It's shared regularly with the Park Service, and the beauty of the program is it allows a very user-friendly interface to pull data that may be needed by the Park Service or for some project that maybe we're doing on the parklands. Monitoring, that has to do with checking out the status of the cave. Does it have recent graffiti in it? And unfortunately, that's something that has become more popular to do over the years. I was hoping we were past that point in human civilization, but unfortunately there's quite a bit of scratching and whatnot in the caves. So we report any sort of vandalism like that. We also report fires that were made within caves. Don't need to do that. Please don't do that. Trash, pick up trash, things like that. So what's the status of the cave, basically? Biosurvey has to do with counting and identifying what kind of cave life you have. It's important to know who uses each cave or shelter or karst feature as a home, especially which ones are back caves, and to make sure that data is documented, including dates, who spotted it, photos, the number of specimens you see, etc. Okay, so each of these things go into the database, and each of these things are utilized by the park. So as far as what kind of inhabitants you see in these caves, we have several species of bats on the Buffalo National River. Have to definitely be very careful around those, especially in the winter. White nose syndrome is here, like I said. So if we find bats in caves that have white nose syndrome, we certainly document that. We also find birds. We found these vultures in the upper left. These are juveniles. They were eyeing us as we were surveying that particular cave. It was a little comical. We see several species of invertebrates, crickets, different spiders, etc., a webworm in the upper right, and then various species of salamanders. We also see some mammals. We see some eastern wood rats. We've seen armadillos, etc. We've even seen evidence of bears in caves too. So all of this is information that we document and provide to the Park Service. So like I mentioned earlier, we do cartography for the Park Service. We follow regularly generally accepted standards, just like you would in any other field, such as accounting, something like that. I have just a couple of examples of cave maps that we've created. Each cave has an accession number. You can see the C number here. Each cave map will have the county, also the entity that it belongs to, the Buffalo National River, and profile, cross-sections, and plan view, in addition to your scale bar and north arrow. So generally accepted principles. We've been working on training new cartographers. As many of you know, it's a daunting task to get into something like this. I remember when I started, it was a little bit intimidating, but with time, we've been able to develop several new cartographers and really make good progress on the map making. Like I had said earlier, we've really been increasing the percentage of maps that are caves that actually have final maps. So just a couple of additional examples of the maps. Like I may have mentioned before, this is one of my favorite parts, personally, of the project. I very much like making maps and reading maps and sharing maps as well. Alright, so each map that we make, we share with the Park Service. Of course, we do regular updates, files updates with them, and sharing of the database. And each cave has its own file of important information like photos, maps, any sort of reports, etc. So let's talk a little bit about data. I come from a data and reporting background, so I love looking at numbers. These figures are from 2015 through March 2020, which was the time of our last trip due to the COVID-19 pandemic and things like that going on. Total people days during this time was about 1,500. That's a lot of days to dedicate to the field. Footage, I was pretty happy with this as it very, very much increased from our last 5-year period. We've mapped about 12.1 miles of cave, short caves, long caves, wet caves, dry caves, within the Park Service within this period of time. That includes 428 total trips. Keep in mind that when we have our expeditions, we may have multiple teams go out, and each team that goes out counts as a trip. Some expeditions we only have 1 or 2 trips go out. Others may be much more better attended, and we may have 5 or 6 teams go out. Also depends on the time of the year. New public use monitoring records, these are the ones where we document any sort of human use, and we do these on every cave that we visit, about 900. New faunal records, so every single species sighting in each cave counts as a faunal record. So I see 5 cave crickets, I will count that as 1 faunal record in one cave. I see another 10 cave crickets in another cave, that's going to count as a second faunal record. Okay, so these faunal records really provide an idea of what lives in these caves. During this time period, we had 216 final maps drafted. I'm expecting a couple more to come across my desk before the end of the month. Working maps, 28 are out there in progress. And as far as new features located during this time, I think I said around 200 or so earlier. 220 were located. This, of course, includes shelters as well, but everything is important here. So there's a little data for you. All of this data was pulled from our FileMaker Pro database. In order to make sure each of our volunteers, and we all operate on a volunteer basis, probably should have mentioned that earlier, but in order to make sure all of our volunteers are up to par on what needs to be done as far as things you can do and you can't do, and safety, etc., we pair new volunteers with seasoned volunteers, with people who have been coming around for a while, who really have a grip on what needs to be done. Every team that goes out will have a trip leader. The trip leader will be responsible for making sure the team does what it's supposed to do and in a safe way. Of course, accidents can happen, cuts and scrapes, etc., but so far we've been pretty fortunate with all that we've been doing over the past decade or so. We also have regular training updates. In the lower left, we have our local Nature Conservancy representative giving us an update and biological identification update on what we would see around here. This not only helps existing and seasoned volunteers to get an update, but also helps new volunteers to get an idea of what they may see and be able to take that knowledge out and apply it. We've also done some vertical trainings, typically an ad hoc sort of one-on-one type thing. We want to make sure that everybody is safe, first and foremost, but also knows how to use the gear that they may already have. A lot of our training takes place in the field, so we may have a new person one expedition, team them up with a couple of seasoned people, and throughout the day they're going to learn and be able to contribute. My philosophy is that everybody has something to contribute, whether it's going out and doing a hardcore trip, going out and hiking 12 miles and finding all these small features and documenting them, taking pictures, or staying back and cooking for the team. Everybody has something to contribute. We also do our best to have a positive presence in the community. So in 2016 and 17, we hosted a biospeleology class from Texas A&M at Galveston for a full week at one of the Park Service facilities that we typically stay in. And I want to say we had something like 20 to 25 students and a handful of teaching assistants and a professor with us. And so we had several of our regulars come out and serve as trip leaders, and we got quite a bit of biological and public use monitoring done. We even got some survey done too, some mapping. So in 2016 and 2017, we hosted the Cave Research Foundation annual meeting within Arkansas. One of them was in Eureka Springs, the other in Harrison, and our particular community, our local CRF volunteers, were really active in helping to organize that and making presentations, etc. We also had a role in the National Cave and Karst Management Symposium in Eureka Springs in 2017. Beautiful place. If you've never been to Eureka Springs, I'd recommend it wholeheartedly. Beautiful place. So we had a role in that. We've also assisted with the Arkansas State Winter Bat Surveys. We've worked with those to help locate and then count the bats on the lands within the Buffalo River. And then as of last year, and we were hoping to do this year as well, but COVID-19 had a little hand in canceling it, we've helped with Project Caves, which is a program that will help junior high school students to kind of get an idea and appreciation of and for what cave and karst is in their state. Great group of kids, hopefully do a little bit more with them in the future. And then to add to this, we've also done some presentations in the community, Rotary Club, etc. Like any sort of organization or project, our greatest assets are our people. We have had quite a few excellent volunteers, people that are willing to get their hands dirty, that are willing to go out and spend a day in the field doing things that may not be comfortable, battling the ticks and chiggers and mosquitoes of Arkansas, but also going out and doing things that are physically exhausting, hiking several miles to get to caves over maybe some steep and rough terrain. So our greatest assets are our people first and foremost, maintaining a good reputation. We try to make sure anybody who comes into the organization knows that we need to behave in a good, responsible manner. We need to make sure that getting data is second only to safety, making sure that going out and accomplishing our goals is done in the safest way possible. Experience, relationships, and data are all very important. So here are just a couple of pictures of some of the faces of the people that come out and work with us. All right, so that's all I've got for you today. I appreciate you listening to me talk about a subject that I could probably talk about most of the day. Here's my contact information. I'm always glad to talk to people. Hopefully we'll be back on our feet and restrictions will loosen a little bit for our work to get started later in the summer or maybe starting in the fall. So have a great day, have a great rest of your summer, and thanks for listening.